Phoebe is going to be receiving her first rerun in patch 2.3, and despite not much time having passed, a lot has changed about this character. So, is Phoebe still worth pulling? And now with the release of Zani, how much better has she become? Well, that's what I'm going to be discussing in this video. These are Phoebe's biggest pros and cons. The first thing I want to talk about when we mention Phoebe is the fact that she has some incredible damage output. You see, Phoebe has two modes, Absolution and Confession. One of them is for DPS, which is Absolution, and the other one is for buffing Frazzle, aka Confession. Absolution is, as of releasing this video, the main way to play Phoebe, as Confession currently does not have a use case, but this is changing very soon. Either way, I'm getting off topic. Phoebe's damage output while in Absolution is incredible, even if you don't have many good supports for her. You see, Phoebe in Absolution mode increases the multipliers of her Ultra skill and Resonance Liberation, as well as giving herself 256% damage amplification whenever her heavy attack Starflash hits an opponent that is affected by Frazzle. This means that the only buff Phoebe really needs in order to deal good damage is having Frazzle applied to the enemy, and while currently Spectra Rover is the only character who can do that, we are getting another character next patch who is capable of doing this, being Shakona. There's also Zani, who is capable of applying a debuff, which counts as Frazzle. It is not entirely clear if Phoebe is able to enhance her heavy attack with this debuff that Zani applies, but if this is the case, this is honestly quite massive for Phoebe, as she now has multiple options for her DPSing role. This leads me to my next point, being the fact that Phoebe's team selection is honestly kind of absurd. The only requirement Phoebe has is wanting a character that applies Frazzle, and for the other teammates, you can basically do whatever, as long as they give some sort of relevant buff. For example, Sanhua is able to give damage amplification towards basic attacks, as well as giving 20% attack with her S6 and being an excellent holder of Moonlit Clouds. Mortefi is very similar. He is able to run Empyrean Anthem, as well as give 20% attack with his S6, giving 40% attack in just less than a second of field time. If you want to use his outro skill as well, you get extra heavy attack damage amplification, as well as 10% attack with Static Mist. So those are two 4-star options who are capable of being incredible supports for Phoebe. For your third teammate, Spectra Rover is the literal first character that you get in the game. So using Spectra Rover with your Phoebe, alongside a Sanhua, gives you a comp that requires literally 0 pulls aside from Phoebe herself. And now with patch 2.3, we also have excellent options, being Shakona for Spectra Frazzle application in Multiwave, as well as Zani for 20% Spectra damage amplification. And if you don't want to use your Zani to support your Phoebe, you can use your Phoebe to support your Zani. Honestly, quite an incredible character with so many different use cases. Next up, I want to talk about the fact that Phoebe has absolutely incredible AoE, some of the best in the entire game. Phoebe's primary damage sources are her basic attack Kamua Star while she is in her Ring of Mirrors from her skill, her Resonance Liberation, and her heavy attack Starflash, as well as her outro skill. All of these abilities deal damage in an AoE, and it's not a bad AoE either. Oh my lord, it is a good AoE. When playing Whimpering Wastes, if the enemies just spawned in, you're basically able to hit every enemy with almost all of Phoebe's abilities. This makes it so Phoebe is an incredible character for AoE game modes, especially if the AoE in question does not have any multiwave. For example, the Overdrive Zone Left Tower First Stage. This is a big wave of enemies, but it doesn't have any multiwave, so it's perfect for Phoebe. She's only limited by Spectra Rover's AoE currently. However, if you choose to roll for Shakona, she has incredible AoE on her Spectra Frazzle application, which means that even that weakness is completely taken care of. Another big positive for Phoebe is that she is incredibly easy to pick up. And when I say she is easy to pick up, oh lord is it easy! You see, I have this friend. This friend didn't really understand the combat of Wuthering Waves and barely knew any rotations, but the second that they got Phoebe, they were able to nail down their gameplay in less than an hour, because it's just that simplistic. It's literally just, you enter Absolution or Confession, whichever one you prefer, You use her skill and her liberation, and then basic 3 times in heavy until you run out of forte. It really is that easy. A character being easy to use does not only mean that they're easy to pick up for people, and that people of lower skill levels are able to play the character more efficiently. It also means that you have to pay less attention to what you yourself are doing, and have more chances to look at what the boss is doing. You see, bosses in Wuthering Waves can stun you for quite a bit when they attack you. Some of them are even capable of grabbing you. So being able to focus on what the boss is doing instead of having to focus on your own character can be an incredible help in combat, as it means that those who have bad attention spans are able to just pay attention to one thing at a time while their brain autopilots the Phoebe gameplay. Another amazing attribute about Phoebe is the fact that she has a ton of good weapon options at her disposal. As a Rectifier character, Phoebe is capable of using a lot of good weapons, as we've just gotten a lot of Rectifier characters over time, so the more limited Rectifier characters we get, the more signature weapons we get for Phoebe to play around with. It's kind of funny just how much synergy Phoebe has with some of these weapons. For example, there is the String Master, giving you 12% attack every time you deal skill damage, which has no cooldown by the way, which means that the fact that Phoebe is able to use her skill which deals 2 ticks of damage, meaning you can get both of the stacks with one skill, very nice. There's also the fact that she has a big swap cancel on her heavy attack, and when you swap cancel, String Master's extra 12% attack will proc, so String Master is just an excellent weapon. There's also the Rhyme Draped Sprouts, which, honestly, it's an incredible weapon for Phoebe as well. It has 72 crit damage and 12% attack just for free, as well as giving basic attack damage bonus. And while basic attack damage is not most of Phoebe's contribution, it's still decent enough to where giving the basic attack damage bonus is still very nice. There's also Contarella's signature weapon, having the exact same stats as Jeja, but just having more basic attack damage bonus. Honestly, it's kind of insane just how much Phoebe has access to when it comes to weapons, and that's just limited ones. Let's not get started on the fact that we have Cosmic Ripples being closer to Phoebe's signature than with most characters in their standard weapons. Obviously, it's not as good as Emerald of Genesis with sword characters, but it's still very good. And that's not even to mention Ocean's Gift, which was given for free in patch 2.1, and is just as good as the standard banner weapon Cosmic Ripples, so Phoebe has some incredible weapon options as well. There is also the fact that Phoebe is very good even at high skill ceilings. Phoebe has a lot of animation cancels in her kit, the main ones being her skill, her forte heavy attack, her forte activation, and also her third basic attack. Phoebe has a lot of animation cancels, so despite the fact that she is easy to use, you can also optimize her a lot if you like the high skill playstyles. And because Phoebe gets most of the buffs from herself, you can easily run her in a dual carry team. She is particularly excellent with Chong-Li or Shang Liao, because she doesn't have a strict time limit on her abilities. She's able to just use her abilities whenever she wants to, while any DPS who has a strict timing can just do their stuff whenever they need to, whereas Phoebe just kind of sits back and waits for that to finish. Another big plus to Phoebe is the fact that she doesn't need to use Shorekeeper or Verina. She'd prefer to use a Spectral Rover on Rejuvenating Glow in her teams instead. This is for a bunch of reasons. For Shorekeeper specifically, half of her utility just becomes invalidated because of how Phoebe works. 15% damage amplification on Shorekeeper's outro is very strong normally, but because Phoebe already gives herself 256% with her own heavy attacks, it's not really that much. It kind of just becomes a drop in the bucket. The 12.5% crit rate, Phoebe runs the Eternal Radiance set, as well as having a signature with 36% crit rate, so you're so easily overcapping on crit rate that this little bit of extra buffing from Shorekeeper doesn't really do anything. So then you're left with Rejuvenating Glow, Fallacy of No Return, and a crit damage buff. But Rejuvenating Glow and Fallacy can also be run on Spectral Rover, which means that Shorekeeper loses this little bit of ground as well. So in reality, Shorekeeper is just a little bit of damage amp, as well as just a crit damage buff. Verina is still a good unit to use with Phoebe, because Verina's 20% attack buff is still very appreciated, and because she has coordinate attacks, you can run her on Empyrean Anthem instead of Rejuvenating Glow. The one issue I have with this is that Verina already has a really short rotation, and guess what? Spectral Rover on Rejuvenating Glow also has a really short rotation. So ultimately, this is not really a team comp that's going to have a smooth rotation unless you choose to run someone other than Spectral Rover, which means you just run Verina on Rejuvenating Glow and then use something like a Moonlit Clouds Shakona. This might end up becoming one of the better teams for Phoebe, actually. And I guess it's time to think of a con for Phoebe now, which is pretty hard to do, but if I had to say it was something, it's that she requires Spectro Frazzle in order to deal good damage. I personally don't think this is going to be a very major point. After all, Spectral Rover is free on literally everyone's account, and we're getting Shakona soon as well, who is also capable of applying Spectro Frazzle. But it is still worth mentioning, because Rover and Shakona are most likely going to go to a future Arrow Erosion team with Cardathea, meaning that if you are choosing to go for Cardathea, you might be out of options for your Phoebe team. However, at this point, you can also just run Phoebe as a sub DPS for Zani, or maybe Zani just works to be a sub DPS for Phoebe as well, and her debuffs do in fact count as Spectro Frazzle. We can't say for certain until she's out, but the fact that Phoebe needs Spectro Frazzle for her Absolution mode can be quite damning for a lot of people, because it means that for some accounts, Phoebe is just not usable at all. But that's just my thoughts on Phoebe. What do you think of her? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. I'm pretty active in there, so if you have any questions, there's a pretty good chance that I'll answer them. But that'll be it from me. Peace.